nearly 100 people here, I think, maybe even a bit more than 100, which is great. This is the third in our safety series. For those of you that may have been here before, we did one on swing stage and we had about 40 people. We did one on EWP, boom lifts, scissor lifts. We had about 70 people, and today we've got over 100. So the word's getting out. I don't know if it's the food because that's nearly all gone, but I think these are interesting programs and we're very, very pleased to put them on for the industry at no cost. Today, as you know, we're about heights and rope safety, and we're going to have a short demonstration. Got two really good speakers here today, but before I get to the speakers, we'll do our housekeeping. So if you don't know already, the toilets are around behind the structure here. Through the wire gate and through the glass door you'll find the toilets. If in the event that we have to evacuate, we can go straight out through the back here and over onto the concrete beside where the tower crane is directly behind us. That's our muster area. Okay? And hopefully we've got enough people in the room that have got current first aid in case somebody gets a real fright out of what Mick's about to do and collapses. And we do have a defib on site as well, just in case. So whilst we do have, that's Bernie, by the way, who's swinging there in the breeze. While we do have Bernie here, we're probably going to need some volunteers later. So as today is a very auspicious day, first state of origin, can we have a show of hands who's a New South Wales supporter? Right, so we've got plenty of volunteers. Plenty of volunteers to be strung up and thrown over the side. So, I'd also like to make mention of a couple of special attendees today, and it just shows the scope of where we're going and what we're trying to involve people in as far as these safety series are concerned. We have people from work cover here today. If we can have a show of hands from the work cover people. Yep, so if you've got some questions about work cover, because at the end of the day, if there is an injury, these are the people that you need to deal with. And from Justice and Attorney General, Workplace Health and Safety, show of hands. Wow, okay. So if you've got some questions for Workplace Health and Safety as well. And last but not least, the hot leasing clients, that is our training providers who work in the facility and provide the training for the industry. So our hot leasing people, put your hand up. Yeah, got quite a few here today. So if you've got any questions about the people who actually come in and use the facility, certainly make yourself aware to them. If you have any questions later on about hot leasing itself, what we do here, how we operate, how did we end up building this thing behind me, by all means come and see me or anyone else that's in a red hot leasing shirt. Questions, as far as questions are concerned, we found that it's best if we leave all questions till the end. We are going to have all of our guest speakers on a panel, and we're going to have lots of time for question time at the end. So note your questions down. If you've got any questions, please save them till the end, and the guys are really keen to answer any questions that you've got. On our panel, we have Mick Rustichelli. Mick is currently on an Optus project with Visionstream. Mick, that's Mick there. He's going to be our first speaker. And Mick's going to be showing a demonstration and talking about rope access, rescue and safety from the telecommunications side of the industry, so predominantly working in towers. We have Chris Milne. Chris, very appreciative. Chris has come all the way from Sydney. Chris's talk is going to be very similar, probably in theme, to what Mick is going to talk about, but from the construction side of the industry. Mick's company does a lot of work in New South Wales and Sydney. The Sydney Hospital, North Shore Hospital, they did all the, yep. The SCG, yep. And anything to do with the game tonight, you guys, because that's where they're playing? And then you're going to fall down? Okay. And so, but from a construction side of the industry. And last but not least, Tom Martin. Tom's our local capital safety rep. Tom's going to give us a brief run over on the latest innovations in this industry, so from an equipment point of view and what's happening as far as development of equipment and safety items in the industry. Okay, so without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Mick.
Well, good morning. My background is I've been a advanced rigger scaffolder Dolman since 1984. Did 10 years in construction all over Australia, and then moved into telecommunications in '93, building mast towers up to 165 metres. When we started in the telco industry, we had a pole belt, similar to a telecommunication pole belt for doing wires in the street, and moved to something like this now. So it's been a evolution for us to get to this stage. Our testimony in the telecommunications industry that you can't count on one hand the amount of deaths we've had from falling from heights. We've got a very regulated industry, tight rules and regulations, and inside VPL, Visionstream, where I've been for the last 8 months, my role is safety supervisor, but national training and equipment subject matter expert, drip under pressure, that kind of stuff. But my role is to make sure that we train. If we control the environment, we control the risk, and we use gear that is suited to the industry. Well, once upon a time, we were given something and said, go to work. It had one purpose, it did one job. Now we look at items that have multiple purposes, so we can use them as forest or work positioning devices, but also double them in for rescue or rigging purposes. So we're moving into different areas. There's a few partners we work with. We work with Capital, but Height Dynamics is a partner of us in Queensland for our equipment. They help us with our legislative requirements and the gear, and even design and construction of our gear. So it's been a great partnership. So my role is that I go out with the guys, train them, refresh them, and height rescue, all the high risk activities. So one of the things that we are finding in the industry is that if you don't have people who are trained and don't use the correct gear, they end up in a situation like this. Our friend Bernie is one of our contractors, because none of our guys would do this, if for real. Bernie has decided to put on a harness and hang over the side of a structure in a fashion that he wasn't trained for. I don't know if you're aware too much of the type of harnesses there are in the industry, but there's two types of harnesses we use in the industry. One's a tower worker's harness, which predominantly where you maintain 3 points of contact and you'll have a work positioning device and a fall arrest system, so you'll climb all over the structure and lock yourself off and then work in that position. The other is what Bernie has on is a rope access harness. So what we've taken in as a lead inside VPL is that all our workers will be trained in the use of tower rescue through a height rescue harness, through a tower workers harness, and those who have had the rope access training will be given the rope access harnesses. Because we're finding that guys are coming into the industry and they see the selection of harnesses that are available right now and they like the look of that harness over what they should have, and they buy that and they come undone very quickly because there's some devices on this harness that you need to be trained in. So what our friend here, Bernie, has done is he's hooked himself up to a descent area on his harness, which is predominantly for a descender or belaying or those sorts of situations, and he hasn't put on a fall arrest backup point on the top of his harness. So on the top of your harness, you'll have your backup point, which is always at the top. It's a fall arrest situation. So he hasn't got himself into the right situation. And so we train our guys to never step over the edge of anything unless you've got your safety on. And Bernie's ignored that. He's gone over and he's put a work positioning device that's predominantly for on the side of the harness. He's put it at this centre point here, and he's turned it into a mini twin rope, which he hasn't been trained in. So Bernie has done all the wrong things that he shouldn't have been doing, wrong harness, wrong equipment, not trained for. So you won't find our guys doing that because we are so heavily regulated with our risk assessments, our work method statements, and our supervisory staff are trained to not get them in that position. And when our guys do get into a rope access situation, they have to cross so many different hurdles before we will give them the approval to go in that rope situation. For us, our above the line principle is if we can use a cherry picker to access where we need to go, that's the first point of call. We only step into a situation with ropes where we can't access via the safest method. So I'm going to show you how to get Bernie down there. I hope I don't stuff it up because I've got so many people watching me today, but we'll just see how we go. Hope you can all hear me. So one of the ways we used to train our guys predominantly was to use a pipe rescue kit. This has been in the industry since '94 inside Telstra. Spent 10 years in radio lines in Telstra. And as a supervisor, field manager, and a third trainer. And we trained all our staff in using the basic pipe rescue kit where we would climb to the casualty and we would take our kit with us and descend down to them, lock off the button, attach that to our chest, put that on our side, descend to the casualty, lifting up with the 61 hauling device, which you'll see over on the table from the sailor, up to me, take him off his pole strap or whatever his instruction, and we set down to the left. That was how we trained in the 90s. Today, we still use exactly the same device. We think that was one of the best devices on the market for that. It's not any equivalent failed, and that's what we use. It has safety in it that we, if you pull too fast, stops to let go. So that's what we try to do here. In an emergency situation when the adrenaline is pumping, we don't have anybody making wrong decisions. So we train basically off that. And recently we've had a bit of a shift in our training so that we now train into other techniques to get to the casualty. We've got to get up to the rope or laying off the structure or using zip line in that practice. But predominantly it's still double this gear and those methods. So a simple thing we're training our staff in is rope access at the moment. A number of our staff through rope access. And so when the guys get the rope access equipment, it also is rescue equipment. So one of the items that we've changed from using just a standard holder is that we'll use now a rope lanyard that has a descending device built into it. So this will allow me to turn this work assisting device into a descender very quickly so I can go rescue the casualty. So a multi-purpose task for an item in the industry now, we're looking more this way rather than just the standard one-purpose item. So this device will hold on to the system onto our working line. We'll know what to ourselves. We also have a standard of triple lock carbines in our industry. So now I have to climb the system to get to a casualty. We also, when we're training or when we're true roping, we always use a backup, a type 1 rest device or second line, just in case we have a fall in the rescue situation. We wouldn't use the second line, we just use one line. I'm going to use it later to show you how it works. There's many ways to climb the rope. We try to stay with the basics. We're not getting too stressed about getting up to the bottom. We use plastic ropes as well in training. We use plastic ropes again for self-rescue. The more that they know about how to get themselves out of trouble, the less chance that someone else has to come and get them and get themselves into the right position ready to use. So I'm now ready to mount the boot. How are you, mate? You normally follow the danger response, send, airways, breathing, a whole lot. Using my feet, help me come to mine. So burning, much to my casualty, I've checked him out, worked out what's wrong with him. I now have to ride him, I have to get him to me. So we've got this simple little device that we're trying at the moment. It's called a 6-to-1 bowling system. This device is rated at 120 kg. That's rated saying 7 kilograms and it's self-locking. In a rescue situation, we have no problem using this device because the person is always attached to the system as is. So, in using this device, we never use this independently without being attached somewhere. This is just a hauling device. Right? You should never have anybody hanging on these independently. So, Milne weighs about 140, 45 kgs. Right? So, he's not a light guy. And this system So now, ready to turn out to me, so I'm going to lift this up a little higher. Not a very position. We normally have about 9 lines in a high rescue kit because you never know what's happening there and you never know when you need that extra one. Now Burning's now attached to me, I can remove his forward system. Okay? I can move that down on me. Right? His legs now on me. I take my retrieval kit, press on it later. Make sure I don't have any rope defending in what we're going to do. Okay, hang on, don't move right that way. And away we go. Simple operation. Putting them stretch and putting them in, that's basically basic one-on-one kind of testing, and using the gear that we use every day, the forwards, we use that as a forward system, we use that as a work position device. So those two items, with a rope grab and they make a pulley, I was able to rescue 45 kilo men at any point, so under 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
very much for that, Mick. I was talking to somebody before we started from another sector of the rigging industry who was telling me about, and only very recently, how he had to call some people down from a tower who had no harness, no lifeline, nothing. They were climbing like monkeys over this mast and these rigging. As you can see by the paraphernalia that Mick's got on there, completely different, completely safe. Just a question without notice, Mick, what sort of training have you done to get to that level?
Well, I'm a rigger by trade, so most of that stuff I understand from the rigging point of view for many years as it's come through the industry. But I've been training in height rescue since '96 with all different types of gear in the industry. So right now I'm a level 3 track rope trained, so I refresh my rope rescue guys. I assist in their training, so it's rope access training. If you want to get to a level where you're instructing, you need to have some sort of rope access competency. But standard height rescue training that you would get from your RTOs is that, in some sense or another. There will be some sort of training involved in that. So you need to make sure that the training that you're getting is built for your industry. We find that the training that we try to get from telco, they want to keep continually training is in construction. And it's two different animals. We'll be from 20 metre poles to 160, 180 metre mast. And the same gear that we use on the 20 metre pole, we'll use on a 180 metre mast and have the same effect. So it's about channeling in on what you require and asking the RTOs to focus on that. And if you're having problems with that, Pete can put you in touch with some of the people we use that are making gear for us, designing training for us, and partnershiping us in the industry rather than this is what you get, this is what you have to deal with. So yeah, it's all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thanks very much, Mick. Chris, over to you. I do apologise for the noise, everybody. We did ask that no work would start until after our presentation, but it seems like the message hasn't gone through. So please bear with us.
Good morning. My name is Chris Milne. I'm from Inov8Access and also a board member of the Australian Rope Access Association. One of the key things that I'm involved in is prudent rope access practices. There is a vast difference between fall arrest or general working at heights and rope access. And the Rope Access Association is developing and working with all the key stakeholders here in Australia, specifically focusing on the rope access method, and that is descending down the side of a structure or in a position where your feet aren't supported by any structure or capability. Now, who's had experience with rope access on their sites or in their workplace? I just have a show of hands. Okay, right, yeah. So it's actually a different group to what I was expecting, but that's okay. Now, I just need to start by saying I have performed a risk assessment prior to coming up from New South Wales, and my safety control is that I'm going to be leaving at around lunchtime on an aeroplane. So I thought I'd just start by leaving you with that. Okay, rope access has given the construction and greater industry amazing capabilities. The ability to turn up with a small bag of kit, very similar to what is presented here earlier, and be able to gain access to the side of a facade, access to a tower, access to any structure, descend down, conduct simple work processes, and then evaluate a system or a process on the side of a building, conduct those works, then pack up and leave in under a day is extraordinary. The construction industry has embraced this immensely. My company has been involved in the last 12 months, specifically in building the SCG Stadium. The last stage that was developed is like a giant aeroplane wing. Now, due to limitations placed by the SCG Trust, and specifically the hallowed ground that we all worship, that green patch of grass, and the protection that needed to be in place. Boom lifts couldn't be left there overnight. There was lots of limitations placed on the client, being AW Edwards. They then approached us and looked at how specifically we could gain access to the structure, work with the cranes and so on. So we were involved in the installation of the fiberglass nose pieces, nose cones as they were called. We spent 6 months on site. We put in place a number of strategies that ensured that the method of work that we were engaging was going to provide a safe place of work, which the powers that be here would be very impressed with, obviously. And it's important to note that that's the whole process of rope access, to provide a double redundancy. You'll notice that in the demonstration there was 2 systems of working. The primary roping system. Now that primary roping system is the one that enables us to ascend or descend down a rope. Then there's an independent secondary safety system that allows us to be attached. So if for any reason one of the roping systems was to be damaged or rendered or severed for any reason, there's a separate complete system. So that is the basis of rope access. It used to be called twin rope access, and the origins are from the North Sea oil rigs, where you can't get a boom lift, you can't use a lot of apparatus, standard apparatus, to take out onto these oil rig platforms. So they utilised the caving techniques of roping, ascent and descent, and then introduced that additional safety process. So as I was saying, we were working on the SCG project, and we were working with 500-tonne cranes lifting 500-600 kilo loads at their maximum outreach of these cranes. And what we were enabling the client to achieve was extraordinary in their minds. We solved a lot of their problems. Now, rope access is an excellent process to solve lots of little problems, and in the case of the SCG project, very large problems. Now, rope access has an exceptional safety record. As working at height, because of this double redundancy process and a stringent training regime within the associations, it allows people to work at heights very, very successfully and very efficiently. One of the important aspects of engaging a rope access company or working with the rope access method is to ensure that you have rope access technicians that can demonstrate a training process. Now, I'm obviously here on behalf of the Australian Rope Access Association. The way we conduct training is we have 3 levels of training: a level 1, a level 2 and a level 3. A level 1 is a basic rope access operative, and they've learned how to ascend and descend the rope, do basic rope manoeuvres between roping systems, a roping system being a pair of ropes to another pair of ropes, or loop traverses and things like, or span lines I should say. And with that, what you've got is the ability for someone to just move around on a rope. A level 2 under the Australian rope access system is a basic site supervisor or a more advanced technician. They learn how to do rescue from ascent rather than descent. What we saw here was a basic rescue scenario. It had a small raising component, and we would call that an ascent rescue, where you have to lift the casualty because of the rope grab has locked off, and then lower them to the ground. It requires a working knowledge of mechanical advantage, which was that suction rig that has the 6-to-1 that was used. So I'll just go through again. A level 1 is a basic operative. They can do basic descent rescues. Level 2 is a basic site supervisor and has the ability to do ascent rescues. And a level 3 is an advanced site supervisor and has the ability to do complex rescue and processes. Complex rescues are what would be found in confined space, for example, large towers where large number of teams are involved, and rescues that are under structure. If we all looked up across the structure here to the right or my right, if let's say that was out of reach of conventional methods, a rope access technician would be able to climb along that structure using their slings and some basic techniques called aid climbing or structure climbing, and then conduct inspections, under bridge work and the like. Now, the advanced site that I'm talking about, the complex rescue environment that I'm talking about, is a situation such as this, where the rescue platform or the rescue zone that we're lowering the person to has limitations and requires a more complex process of rigging and retrieval to take place. Now, the important factors that of someone engaging a rope access company, as I said, is prudent training. The review of the rescue and response process and method is the one thing that we've seen in the changes with the work health and safety regulations. It now is an emphasis on rescue and retrieval. Over the years, I've seen the height safety system, height safety movement and the rope access movement mature. We were all at one stage just happy that people were wearing harnesses in the first place, that they were placing anchor points on their buildings. And we've now progressed right through the system to ensure that not only that they are wearing equipment that is, has a quality control attached to it, that they're using it correctly and trained correctly, that we've now moved right through the system, and the system being the rescue and response times. 5 to 10 minutes should be a real rescue and response time of a rope access capability. Now, has anyone heard of the term suspension trauma or harness hanging syndrome? Okay. It's the dark horse of our industry, so to speak. It's a thing that we all need to be prudently managing. Now, there are varying viewpoints in our industry as to how long it takes for someone to be unconscious in a harness. It ranges from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, and it has a lot to do with things such as your body type, your fitness level, the injuries you're have sustained. So with that, the important factor is that a prudent rope access organisation or team should be able to conduct a rescue within 5 to 10 minutes. Now, that seems like a long time when you're holding your breath or you're waiting for the grand final to finish because your team's falling behind. But in a rescue scenario, I've done training processes where we've conducted a rescue and it's taken up to an hour and a half to complete that exercise in evolution for the first time, or with a team that's not very experienced. So an hour and a half is a massive difference to the 5 to 10 minutes. The biggest difference and the main approach in someone achieving that goal time of 5 to 10 minutes is what we call rigging for rescue planning and training. Now, if you think of all the little things that need to take place to hone down your rescue response from an hour and a half, worst case scenario, to 5 to 10 minutes, there is an enormous amount. Things like having quality training is important. The use of equipment, pre-rigged kits, pre-rigged rigging systems. Everyone's trained and has conducted a rescue response in that specific environment and is capable of delivering it. As a PCBU, you have the right to ask your team to conduct a rescue in your environment. Demonstrate that you have a team. I've been called in on a number of occasions to construction sites to review other roping companies to ensure that they're doing things the right way. And that process is where we're educating novice companies, for example, that they need to be getting their processes down pat. And most of the time these guys are untrained. like in any industry, there are individuals who are parading around with experience. So the key area for review in a rope access, especially in the construction environment, is to make sure that the company not only presents themselves well on paper, but is able to demonstrate their skills and ability. And we've been asked on a number of occasions to demonstrate our rescue processes. On our SCG project, we were using complex roping apparatus, electric motorised winching systems. We had full rescue retrievable rigging processes, meaning that even though someone was right out on the steel structure, we could lower them from the ground doing what we call a non-contact rescue. Now, what was demonstrated here was a contact rescue. Now, that should be your last resort as a rescue process. Where possible, having the ability to lower someone to the ground from a safe, the anchorage position is the more prudent process. And these are so the key things that you should be looking for when engaging rope access. Some of the things that need to be reviewed, especially in the rope access community, is we've come from an area where we weren't accepted very much at all. We were seen as a bunch of fringe rock climbers, hippies as it were, in the early days. We weren't taken very seriously. The rope access community, I can assure you now, is a very strong and capable community. There are career rope access technicians who have more skills than the average fire department. I can say that confidently because one of my staff is a rescue fireman down in New South Wales. I've seen their kits and capability. They have great capability for what they've been asked to achieve. But in rope access, when you go through a prudent training organisation such as the Rope Access Association, and you can display a qualified ticket in level 1, 2 or 3, you can be assured that they're able to deliver a rescue response and the capability there. In acceptance of the rope access process, we've seen a maturing of our industry. That industry has come from what is humble beginnings here in Australia now to a very strong and capable community. As I said, I personally do the courses that the trainers of the organisations do, such as the Fires, the SES and the Police Rescue, as a rope access technician. So there's individuals like myself who are directors of companies, and we're doing the upper echelon of rope access and roping training to ensure that we've got cutting edge technologies and capabilities. An area that I'd like to challenge in our industry as well is the focus on designing the rope access systems to meet the environment. Construction companies specifically have really enjoyed the benefits of removing a BMU, those building maintenance units, the gondolas that go down the side of the building, and they've enjoyed the benefit of saving approximately $1 million for the average BMU on the side of the building. What we're not seeing though is them taking the right approach in adopting anchorage systems into the facade elements that are cutting edge. They're happy to just accept basic anchorage points, like a faller system. What we're now seeing in the cutting edge of rope access environment is rope access specific designs, roof jockeys, artificial high directions where you'll have needles that will project the rope access system, allow for increased efficiency and the ability for a rope access team to move around the site more efficiently. And so I would like to encourage any of the construction organisations here today to really look into the cutting edge technologies that rope access is presenting, and not just going for the bare minimum packages, but look at how you can complement your buildings and designs to enable the most cutting-edge rope access systems to be in place. The Rope Access Association has some key resource documents that we can provide for you. Now, I've spoken to Pam and Peter and the guys, and for those who are interested, if you would like to provide emails to Pam, we can provide you with a pack of information. There's codes of practice that undergird the Rope Access Association, the General Working Code of Practice, Anchor Point Code of Practice, the Anchor Point Installation Code of Practice, and then we've got a Rope Access Site Checklist. These tools can arm you as a PCBU to be able to manage a rope access process in your workplace, ensure that you're meeting the industry best practice here in Australia. The tools such as the rope access checklist enable you as someone with limited knowledge of the rope access method to review a rope access company or tenderers that are going for your projects to be able to go through systematically, going through their skills, qualifications and capabilities, and enable you to evaluate them seriously. So those resources will be made available. We'll send you an email pack. It is a substantial number of documentation. That's why we haven't printed it out and flooded up your little package there. So yeah, I hope this has been informative. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chris. Okay, hand over to Tom Martin from Capital Safety.
Thank you. Just to give you an idea of my background, I'm now in the industry 21 years with Capital Safety. In the past life, I spent 5 years in fire service, 2 years here in Brisbane driving a QATV ambulance, so you can tell how long ago that was. Those are the days of canvas stretchers and one-man cars, so they were fun days. My primary job within Capital is consulting on height safety issues, confined space issues, working at height in restraint technique, or working at height in full arrest. But as you are aware, we do, as a company internationally, have rescue systems available. Just to give you a brief background, anybody here have heard of the name Rollvis before? Right. Rollvis eventually, I should say, originated in Switzerland. And the company there in Switzerland made controlled descent devices, and they were primarily used in the overhead cable cars in the snowfields. Something went wrong, down they went using the Rollvis system. Sala International, as it was known then, back in about 1995, purchased Rollvis. And we have had that company within the DBI Sala and the Capital Safety Company ever since. And we've slowly added bits and pieces to the rescue range known as Rollvis. I'm sure you've all heard of SRTE in Sydney, and you're probably aware that 4 or 5 years ago we purchased SRTE and set about putting all the product through the applicable standards here in Australia and also overseas in America and also in Europe. And the actual range of product now is probably only about 1/3 of what it was when we took the company over. A lot of the product on the range was sort of one-offs, and Boris was really good at making good stuff. But someone would walk in the door and say, if we put a pink polka dot there and a screw in there, it'll go better. So Boris would make one and make a part number for it and add it. And it was good stuff. It lasted well. So what we have done over the last couple of years, we've put everything that we have now on that range through the Australian standard that's applicable to it, and also the overseas standards available. The latest one, and I'm sure you've heard of the No Worries. This is basically Mark V version of the No Worries. I can now drop 300 kilos, 150 metres on this. And if you have a look at it, you want to have a look at it later on, You'll notice the handle on it is a high density plastic because the handle got so hot when we're dropping 300 metres at that length. We had to change the construction of it. We also made changes to it which makes it a lot easier to use as an ascender. Over the years, people have come to us, and the industry is a very good thing for us because they'll come and say, well, it's very difficult to use an ascender. Can we do something with it to change it? So that's the roll. That's the now known as the roll bliss. The other one we've developed, a couple of items here you can see. This is the latest shock absorber. And this can be used in general height safety. We have a range of product that uses this particular shock absorber. As you can see, it's a lot lighter, it's a lot smaller than the standard shock absorber. We still use the standard ones. If you'd like to have a look at it, I'm not going to try and explain how this works and why it is so small, but I can show you one that has been deployed. And we are available to do drop tests on different trailers that we have. We can do 100 kilo drop tests to show you staff or whoever how these shock absorbers actually operate and the types of pressures involved in a fall situation. Just as an example, the first drop I would do on a test is 100 kilos, and I will drop it around about 400 millimetre on a 3-strand polyester rope without a shock absorber. Anybody want to hazard a guess what type of pressure's involved there? 400 millimetre, not much. You can jump 400 millimetre quite easily. No guesses? Usually get over a tonne. Let's think back to the old standard, and we know the standards have changed. The older standard allowed me to fall 600 millimetres in a waist belt. So you can imagine what your internal body organs will be in shape after doing like that. So shock absorbers, and again, I'm talking more away from the actual rope access using this type of equipment. The latest rope grab we have, the rope safe, that's also now available. If you'd like to have a look at it, have a play with it, please by all means.